that's not something that we can work on in space. So I think that's something that I think we need to kind of just emphasize on, because we need all of the different backgrounds, different expertise to be applied in space too, because it's so growing, and I think we're going to talk about that today as well. It's becoming so huge that we need as much help as possible to really push it forward, but not also forget our Earth, which is just a sneak peek almost like that.
Yeah, so good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So just to follow up, basically we wouldn't be able to function these days without satellites and without technology in space. And just to follow up what Sarah said, think of GPS, think of any navigation, whether you drive a car or you are flying a plane or you want to find any of the objects or any other person, this is GPS. Communication, more and more communication is actually being done through the satellites, and we are talking about satellite TV but regular phones, which are right now connecting through the satellites. And last but not least, the whole Earth observation. You cannot really think about how the Earth is functioning, how you can actually improve many areas of Earth without Earth observation. And that Earth observation is not just optical, and everyone knows beautiful pictures of Earth, but it's infrared, it's radar. You can and you need to understand the Earth only by observing it with different instruments, and this is all happening right now. And I think the important part is that back 5-10 years ago, of course, all of this was already there in space, but few companies, few corporates were actually actively using it. Like today, insurance companies are using satellite data to try to even envisage, try to predict disasters. Of course, you can predict it by a day too, but it still matters. You can send the rescue teams. You know what areas you can or you should evacuate, and which one can stay. These are important parts which are actually happening more and more frequently in today's lives.
Absolutely. You can also predict where food aid will be needed and reroute all kinds of resources much earlier thanks to this observation. And to your point, one of my favorite stories is actually Organic Valley, which is the largest, I think, co-op in the United States of organic dairy products. They have the ability to see where irrigation is leaking now from space, or observing novel forms of light to know how plants are doing in the field. It's incredible, the list of things.
Absolutely, like the companies which are using the infrared, like Hydrosat, which are having the satellites capable of measuring up to 1/10 of a degree on a change of temperature on the Earth. And plants react to the water stress with changing the temperature. So you can precisely understand how much water they need. And if you overwater them, it's not only you are losing money and you are using one of the precious resources, which is water, but you are also, having crops much lower. Crops can be up to 30% lower if you are overwatering your plants. So precise hydration, you can only do it from space.
So now that we know that this matters, right, and it applies to our real lives and our real businesses, it's not just other real businesses like asteroid mining, but more practical things. Let's talk about money. So space tech has the potential to generate something like $2 trillion in the next decade. And I'm curious to hear from each of your perspectives, what specifically are we watching for? Where is this investment coming from and who's benefiting?
These days, you have both private and governmental money. Again, in the past 10, 15 years ago, you basically had national, international space agencies. Think of NASA, think of European Space Agency, and all the governments which were actually actively, taking part in the space economy. And ever since it started to become a commercial product, each and every one of us started to use it. We have a lot of investment funds, including OP, which are actively investing in this space just because it's just making money. The company that we've invested in ISIGHT 8 years ago, this year should be doing something like 200 million revenues, or hopefully even more. These are real money of the real startups which are evolving and are being established each day.
Yeah, I completely agree, honestly. it has a lot of potential. And I think whenever we think space, we think it's going to be so far away that it's not going to be generating money. But yes, it does generate because it's very applicable right now. We are needing it right now. A lot of countries are really investing very heavily on satellite imagery because you use it to monitor weather. And you can't just have one country that's able to get all of this data because then you have too much leverage over another country. So a lot of countries around Africa and emerging countries as well are really heavily investing in that because that's something that we really, really need. But then other than that, you have a lot of the technology that we're developing in space has a lot of benefits that we don't